Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's French Open Round 2 catch-up.
Swiatek saves match point to win Osaka epic.
Mauresmo puts her foot down on fan behaviour.
And Tennis Weekly is live at Roland Garros.
Kim, today is the 30th of May and we are here to catch up on all the action from round 2 of the French Open. At the French Open, we are here, we're in glorious sunshine. We actually can't promise that we're going to cover all of the action because not all the action's finished.
No, and sunshine has definitely not been the weather of the tournament so far because for most of our time in Paris, it's been very, very wet, and this is the first sunshine we've actually seen.
And in fact, we haven't seen much of the sky because we've been under the roof of Susan Longlong, so you do get maybe a couple of glimpses at the side of the roof. But Kim, this is the first time that you've seen a roof, I believe, at Roland Garros. It's been 10 years.
It is. I finally returned after 10 years. There are now 2 roofs, although I have to say they are interesting roofs. They're very different to the roofs at Wimbledon where you're kind of completely enclosed in this locked space, whereas here you're kind of more open to the elements still. You get a sense that you're still at one with your surroundings. Although it does let in a bit of rain still.
Did you get wet?
Depending on where you're sitting. I saw some people having to put an umbrella up, even though they're on Suzanne Longlong. And I was fine, but I felt sorry for the fans that were still getting dripped on, even though there was a roof over their heads.
Yes, I also experienced a little bit of that on Chatrier. There are some holes in the very aesthetic roof. I think it's not maybe meant to sustain this amount of rainfall, but it's kind of nice, as you say, that it is an outdoor-indoor feel.
Yeah, I think it's been done sensitively for, maintaining that kind of outside aspect of the tournament. And maybe, the fan comfort was less of a priority. They just were very concerned about keeping the players, less impacted. They wanted to keep it more of an outdoor feel, which I totally get. But yeah, I think, roofs can be quite controversial, and maybe there's a bit of controversy with this one, but I think it's fine for the main part. And I think the weather generally is looking up, so I think they're starting the sessions earlier tomorrow, which is a positive move. Some argue that could have been done today perhaps because they are still behind. We still have players waiting to play their second round, while some players are already through to the third round comfortably. So it's a bit like the Wimbledon of last year,
yes,
which was all over the place.
And how did we surmise that?
No rounds, just vibes, I think, was the comment of the week from last Wimbledon. I think that applies here to some extent.
No, I would completely agree. No rounds, just vibes. And we will be giving you updates on the matches. And as we've said, some people are into round 3. Some people are yet to finish their second round or have played part of it. A couple of days ago now, I think 30 hours ago, Nishikori and Ben Shelton first took to the court, and they've only just stepped back onto the court. We are very lucky that after this, we'll be going to see a bit of Casper Ruud. But, Kim, I must ask you, you arrived in Paris on Tuesday and you posted to the group a very lovely picture of a roof. What have you been up to since you've been in Paris?
Well, yeah, that roof was not a leaky roof. It was at Versailles. So
Ooh.
I went and made the trip out to Versailles yesterday, which was lovely.
A leaky roof.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have had a few leaks over the years, but you've had to spend a lot on conserving the roof there. But yeah, I went to Versailles yesterday, had a bit of a nightmare journey back into the city because of train issues, but managed to come back okay. And been up the Eiffel Tower as well.
Oh, have you?
So all the main tourist stuff from Paris.
You're hitting all of your marks.
Cliche.
I've been to Roland Garros, the airport, and Roland Garros, I think, is all I've done so far. So I really need to take in something a bit more cultural to try and emulate what you're able to kind of take in so far.
Well, there's lots of cultural aspects to a visit to the tennis. It's quite fashionable here, isn't it? They really go after that kind of style conscious.
Everyone is very well dressed, and we should make that clear if you are attending. This is the one to dress up for, or the one to be particularly chic in. If there's that top or outfit that you weren't sure about, or in Kim's case, a gorgeous sort of chocolate blazer.
Oh, thank you.
This is the time to wear it.
It is hard to not get bedraggled, though, I find, at tennis. You're literally out all day in all the elements.
You start well, and then you see where you end up.
Yeah, and it's sort of, before and after.
You end up with like a cagoule on, the hood's up.
A blanket,
you're bunkered
scarf,
down.
And sun cream. It's all weathers, as, many diehard tennis fans will know.
And one thing we have been talking about, Kim, is that we do always ask our guests about how they like their tea. You do like a tea.
I love a tea.
You've been trying to track down tea in Paris to not that much success.
Well, tea in Paris generally has been fine, but tea at Roland Garros has been an issue. I went to an outlet earlier. They didn't serve tea. They only did coffee. I asked, could I have some hot water? They said no. And there seems to just be like one place in the whole site that does tea. So it's a bit of a trek to get it. But yeah, and on a rainy, kind of cold day, that's exactly
a cup of tea is
what
very
I wanted.
important for us Brits,
Yeah,
isn't
and
it?
I was actually kind of feeling a bit like tea withdrawal. So yeah, any British fans here, maybe bring a flask if they're allowed.
Yes, and
a small flask of hot liquid.
I think it has to be transparent, though. I think that's the rule for the liquids, unfortunately. So that might not be possible. But Kim, can you tell us where was this tea point that you found? Is it around where we are now?
To the south of Suzanne Longlon.
The south of Suzanne Longlon, if you'd like a cup of tea.
But the tea bag was very nice. It was quite a posh pyramidal tea bag.
Wonderful. Well, we probably should talk about some tennis.
We should. This is not the tea podcast.
Tea podcast. Tennis Weekly is what you
Tennis
called it last time.
Yes.
We can bring that one back. But we've been on Susan Longlon. We're on separate sides. We've been waving to each other. We've been seeing all the action, but from different sides of the court. And we've had quite a full day so far. And we have got another match being allocated to Susan Longlon. We're actually recording under sort of the awning of the... Would this be the west side?
I think this is the west side.
The west side, in between Susan Longlon and Court 12. And we started the day at 11 a.m. with some Medvedev. We didn't see much of him, though.
No, that was a very one-sided encounter. I did wonder what was going on with Kekmanovic, but he then retired, I think, at 6-1, 5 down, which probably explained why he was getting beaten so easily. So that was a bit of a shame that kind of ended like that. But it was very much one-way traffic.
It really was.
And, Medvedev was playing well, I thought, but, not really much opposition, really, I think, today. Definitely not the Kekmanovic we know.
Who's caused the Brits so much trouble in the past.
Yeah, and I think actually really that's been the story of the day on Long Lon for the most part. We had Rybakina second. That was quite straightforward.
There was one hiccup from Rybakina. She did go a breakdown 4-2, I believe. That was in the second set before she kind of just blitzed the last 4 games and off she went.
Yeah, and I think, to some extent, having those little blips, you want to be a bit battle hardened, don't you, to going through the tournament. And we've just seen Madison Keys against Maya Sharif, again, Keys having a bit of a battle in that second set, being taken to a tie-break after the first set was so one-sided. So it was 6-love, 7-6 in the end. And I think, Keys would be glad to have come through that, for it not to have gone to a third set, just like I'm sure Rybakina was pleased to come through in 2. You can't win the tournament in the first few rounds, but you can lose it. And you just want to make sure you're coming through generally safely and kind of getting over those little niggles and hiccups. And I think, a bit of a fight here and there could be a positive thing further down the line, for sure.
Exactly. And someone who did have a bit of a fight, I would say, in the first round, but still came through in straight sets, and then today improved on that, was Novak Djokovic, who was playing against a player that I'm actually very bad at saying the name of.
Roberto Caballes Baena.
Yes, and
RCB.
RCB, exactly. That's what I always call him, RCB. And that is a bit easier. So he's in a comeback slam. It was quite a tight first set, but a lot of people have said that this was the best they've seen Djokovic play this year. It looked like the more the match went on, the better he got. Do you think that now your prediction of a Djokovic win is looking even more likely?
I think it might be, yeah. I mean, obviously, Roberto Caballes Baena, no offence to him, is not going to be the same as playing a Yannick Sinner, is it? But I think this is just what Djokovic needs, some kind of smooth early round victories to come through. And I think he'll be really pleased with the way today went. He's also, as a top seed, he's, sheltered from all these rain issues that we've seen. And, the top seeds generally aren't really affected by that because of the courts that they play on. So I think he'll be, quite happy with how things have gone so far, really. Yeah,
and one of the things we've talked about is the fact that he hasn't been returning like Djokovic. It's been very uncharacteristic, whereas this match, he was very much on the return. He actually won 52% of points against RCB's first serve. So clearly he was having a great day on return. He was also serving pretty well with 72% of first serve points won. Slightly lower first serve percentage than we've seen from him sometimes at 63%, but he was very much playing the better tennis today. And he will be moving through to round 3 pretty comfortably. Also moving through very comfortably on Chatrier, opening Chatrier today in what many have called, and we continue to call, the graveyard slot, was Sabalenka, who came through 6-2, 6-2, very unchallenged by a player that I'm not sure many of us would have heard of. Uchijima, I'm going to say, and please correct us if I'm wrong, if I've said that wrong. A player who has not had that much experience at this level, but still, I think it's a good result for her. She represents Japan. She's at 83 in the singles ranking, and she had a good match to get through to this stage and to come through qualifying. So it's a big occasion for her, but Sabalenka had far too much for her to handle on the day.
Getting the job done. And yeah, those sort of early rounds, there's barely anyone on the court, in the stands. It doesn't kind of...
Chilly, quite cold atmosphere anyway.
Cold, dank day. So you just kind of need to focus and get the job done, really. You're not there probably knowing that you're going to get lively entertainment from the crowd at that time in the morning.
You'll be energizing yourself at that time in the morning.
Self-motivate.
Well, a match where there was a lot of motivation coming from the crowd was when Diane Parry took on Iga Swiatek, the 15th seed, who made a quarter-final here last year, obviously a semi-final at Wimbledon last year. That was very tight in that second set. Svitolina coming through 6-4, 7-6. I believe that Svitolina was actually up in that second set before Diane Parry broke back and then pushed it to a tie-break. She did come through. That had a much better atmosphere on court. There were a lot of people, a lot of cheers from around the ground to people who were watching whilst play was suspended, very much keeping French hopes and, well, all hopes that things might improve weather-wise alive, entertaining the crowds. Svitolina, she's been coming back from injury. She hasn't quite had the form that she had probably going into the Australian Open, but it seems like she's switching it on now, and she will have a good draw to reach the fourth round before it gets a lot trickier. How far do you think she can go?
Well, I think, we're not talking about her in the same way we were a few months ago, when she first came back. She's kind of a bit under the radar. So I think actually she probably quite likes it like that. Bit of a dark horse.
The pressure's all on her husband at this stage.
Well, yeah, and he's in the night session later today.
He is, against Musetti.
So that could be quite a showstopper, perhaps. But yeah, I think Svitolina getting the job done, always difficult against a home favourite. I think they had another French girl playing today, Chloe Paquet as well, who came through in the third set.
Yes.
Against
third set tie-break, yes.
Yeah, and I could hear all the roars from that court going off
and
throughout.
It was a classic where they believed, the crowd thought that at 7 points in the tie-break in the final set, that was the victory.
Classic
error. So, yeah, it was the double cheer for the double win. They had to go back to basics. But a match that you did wish that you could see, but you weren't able to see, was on Simone Mathieu. It was one of your favourites. Nakashima was playing against Hurkacz. Not the result maybe you were looking for there as a Brandon fan, but a sign of some form from the American.
Decent, because he's been kind of in the doldrums of late, and I think this was quite a fun match. Obviously, it was delayed from yesterday and very on and off, stop-start today. Would have liked to have seen a bit of that, but I wasn't really prepared to sacrifice my long lawn seat to sort of battle with crowds on the rain, to be honest. But yeah, Hurkacz coming through in that one. Dimitrov also through as the 10th seed.
Very straightforward. Yeah.
Absolutely. So he's kind of sailed through today. I think Seb Korda also making it through as well.
Straight sets as well. He'll be back tomorrow. These players are off. They'll be back again because of the delay. It means that they'll be playing back to back.
He's playing Alcaraz, Korda.
That will be
in the next round.
That will be a stern test. Alcaraz obviously had that test yesterday, and someone else who's been having a test. I mean, a lot of the seeds have been facing some tests, or they've been winning very easily, but nothing really in between. Vondrousova got bageled by volley nets before she managed to battle through. Not necessarily what you'd expect from a Wimbledon champion, but she did find a way to win. Samsonova, one of your favourites. I think you picked her for a Wimbledon before.
Oh, many years ago, I did predict her to win Wimbledon. It may happen. It may still happen. But yeah, I thought she would have a more tricky match today against Amanda Anisimova, former semi-finalist here. But it was, I think, 1-2. So that was quite a surprising scoreline. But Anisimova, not the player she was a few years ago.
Yeah, it did seem like it was pretty straightforward. And then a match that has great significance to Zizou Bergs, who managed to come through. It's his first time into a third round of a slam. And he will break the top 100 for the first time.
Over Martera, 4 sets today.
Yes.
Decent.
And with all the discussion around the rules and regulations of what's been going on, with the crowd noises, I actually saw that he started a football chant on court.
So he doesn't mind noise from the crowd then?
I'm not sure he does. But again, you've obviously arrived after some of the drama that's gone down, and Amelie has announced that She will be putting the most experienced umpires on courts where she thinks there might be the most boisterous,
Aggro.
yes, the most aggro, exactly, as well as no alcohol being allowed onto courts. This is obviously a crackdown. There's more security as well. Do you think it feels different? And do you kind of agree with some of these decisions that have been put in place?
Yes and no. I didn't actually, until I read that there had been a ban, I didn't really notice it myself. I hadn't sort of thought, oh, no one's having a beer on court. But I suppose it hasn't really been the weather for a nice cold beer.
No, you were looking for a tea,
fair. I was looking
not a
for
Hugo.
tea. I know, I thought this is when you want as many hot drinks to be offered as possible. But I think, one of my bugbears are the sort of like aggressive beer drinking laddish kind of louts that come in around 5 p.m. and start
cause trouble,
yelling out,
essentially.
causing trouble. You get them at other slams. You get them everywhere. It's just kind of part of the deal. But does it have to be part of the deal? I don't know. I think this is an interesting manoeuvre. It makes sense, but I don't think it's going to rule out this behaviour altogether, because I think some people are just going to be that way whether they've had alcohol or not, and they could come out down 4 pints and then go back in and cause aggro still. So I don't know if it's going to be like a silver bullet solution for this. I think you need to stamp down kind of the root cause, and I don't know if that is completely alcohol or not.
I agree. I think Medvedev made the point that the French crowds are always that bit more boisterous, so either you have to kind of crack down on the idea of no one can make a noise before the first or second serve, and you have to be very strict on that from an umpire perspective, or you just have to embrace the noise like at the US Open, and you just let people talk throughout and engage, and then actually that might be less distracting for the players. We talked about Iga in the second half with Alina and the comments that she made. It wasn't that much of a big deal in that Chatrier match. It obviously can be a big deal when French players are playing. Do you think that that's just part and parcel of playing at the French Open against a French player?
I think, any sort of, it's like Davis Cup, you're going to get these really partisan crowds, and
you get drums,
you come to
brass
expect
bands.
it. Yeah, you come to expect it to some extent. There's no excuse for anything disrespectful, though. And I think that regardless of, whether you're a home fan or not, there's a time and a place for certain types of behaviour. Between points, fine, end of the game, etc. But any time when a player's about to serve or between first and second serves, it just needs to be really, really clear. And maybe the tournaments can go further in kind of addressing that, because some people may be new to tennis. They're used to other sports, so they don't actually know the etiquette. So maybe just, I don't know, publish some rules, announcements.
Like they announced there would be no handshakes, for example.
Put them on the screens between each game, instead of like adverts or whatever. Just have some signage, or just there are other things you can do.
Or umpires taking a firmer hand on it. I think a lot of the times we've seen players have to ask.
People evicted from stands. We have seen that at times in extreme cases.
Yes.
But I think there's a time and a place. I do love some aspects of the French crowd, though. I think,
I love an ole.
The ale, I love that, I have to say. But obviously only when it's done in a respectful way. And, I'm not a fan, as you know, of on-court bad behaviour from players, and I wouldn't want bad behaviour from fans either. So I think
we should also be held accountable, I agree, in terms of the fan behaviour and making sure that we add to the vibe and add to the ambiance of the event rather than detract from it or cause a change in the result. But I do think that when you are against a crowd or a crowd in opposition to you, it's always going to be tough to keep your focus. And it really is one of the toughest tests of sport. And the fact that sport is an entertainment sport, it's always going to be like that. So they can do something. I do think the crackdown has probably been a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. But obviously what happened to David Goffin when he was spat on by a fan.
That's awful.
Awful, unacceptable. And they're looking for the person who did that to make sure that they're banned and never come back to the tennis. But, apart from that, I think positive in many ways that it's being addressed in the security side of things. We saw at UTS last year, fans jumped over because of the lack of security at that event. And I do think that more security at tennis events, given the past history of what's happened, the protests that we have seen increasingly, is no bad thing.
Yeah, and UTS actually, they have announced today that the grand final is going to be in London again in December at the Copper Box, Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. So news on that today has come out. But yeah, I think UTS, that's completely the other side, isn't it? Because people were getting away with anything at UTS, the players as well. There were no rules.
That's true. There were no rules.
So it's
bad
almost,
example.
It sort of goes from one to the other. And I think maybe, there's good and bad things, I guess, for both. But yeah, absolutely. Things like spitting at players, that's just absurd. And I think, it is maybe a bit of a political move, I suppose, banning the alcohol from the stands. But I think, Whether it will have that much impact, I don't know. Let's wait and see.
Yes.
But perhaps it's a positive place to start, and they can trial it and always reassess.
Exactly, and see how it goes. So,
Yeah.
Kim, this brings an end to the first half.
Yes, you and Alina are carrying us through what happened yesterday.
Yeah, we are. We're
Loads
going to take a trip back in time, but we have to find out. So, from your time at Roland Garros, what has been your peak, your pit, and your pleasant surprise of your day so far?
Well, my peak is actually, this may sound incredibly sad. It was when a pigeon came onto Suzanne Longlawn and was flying around and like going up into the folds of the roof. And then everyone was kind of, the players had to stop. I managed to capture a bit on video, and everyone was like cheering as it finally like escaped from the court and made its way out the side. And
it's
I
quite
thought,
hard, isn't it, to escape for the pigeon?
Yeah, exactly. And I felt for it, and I thought, oh, if you're a bird watcher or an ornithologist, you could, bring some binoculars, you could watch some tennis, you could also do some bird watching.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Literally. So that was actually like a weird peak, I guess. A pitfall, struggling to find tea.
Understandable.
Pleasant surprise. Well, I suppose the pigeon might be my pleasant surprise, but
have you seen Simone Mathieu? The sun coming out.
I need to go and see Simone Mathieu because I haven't actually been up there.
Yes, you've got to head that way.
And I've seen the Rafa statue, which is obviously
I should say this. I did say I was going to try and find Kim and locate Kim, and then what happened in the way that we actually did locate her was because she was by the Rafael Nadal statue.
Yes, I wasn't hard to find because my entrance came in right.
You do enter right in front of it, but of course you went straight there.
Yes, absolutely.
Paid your tribute.
Absolutely. I do. That statue, it obviously, Rafa totally deserves a statue. It's not, I think, the most aesthetically pleasing statue, but it does go very much with the architecture of the site. And I think, they've definitely made some good changes to the site since I've last visited. I definitely, hopefully, won't leave it as long next time before my
Well, we all have
next
to
visit.
come back sometime, don't we? We've got to get Joel here.
Joel needs to come over.
Joel needs no camping, no queuing required.
No camping and queuing. It is nice that you can just like stroll in and you don't
get
have
a resale
to do that
ticket and hop on the Eurostar tonight if you really want to.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's well worth coming over, and also loads to see in Paris. And I've got another 2 days of sightseeing after this.
Well, that sounds lovely. You have to keep me updated, but we have got to go and watch Casper Ruud now. He's been moved to our court
against Davidovich Fokina.
It's going to be a good match. Should be a very tight match, and a bonus match for us.
Yeah, five matches in one day. Super good.
It is very good bang for your buck in that sense. But do stay with us. We're going to take a quick break now. Join us in the second half when Alina and I will be talking about watching the epic clash between Naomi Osaka and Iga Swiatek from a corporate box, as well as all the action from yesterday. But I should say, thank you for joining us, Kim, in the first half.
Au revoir, and see you on the next edition of Tennis Weekly as well. I will be back.
Yes, you will be back. So until then, join us in the second half.
Get ready for the Boodles. The ultimate pre-Wimbledon tennis exhibition is returning to Stoke Park from the 25th to the 29th of June.
And we are offering one lucky Tennis Weekly listener the chance to win a pair of stadium tickets to join us at the Country Estate for a day of world-class tennis in an English garden party setting.
Where you can sip champagne, dine in style and mingle with your favourite tennis stars.
The Boodles is located just 35 minutes from central London, and every seat in the stadium is no more than 10 metres from the court, giving every guest the ultimate fan experience on one of the UK's finest grass courts.
Tickets start from £105 and attendance is strictly limited to 2,000 per day, so booking early is advised to avoid disappointment. To book, visit www.theboodles.com. That's www.theboodles.com.
And for your chance to win a pair of stadium tickets, all you have to do is follow us on social media at Tennis Weekly Pod, like our competition post and tag a friend that you would like to bring with you.
Maximum 2 entries per person, 1 per social channel, and the competition closes on Saturday the 1st of June at midnight. Winners will be announced on our Round 4 French Open catch-up on Monday the 3rd of June, so listen in to find out if you're our winner.
Another update on Boodles. We can confirm that Stefanos Tsitsipas and Hubert Hurkacz will be appearing there, which is very exciting. Tsitsipas will be returning, and so if you'd like to see him and see us at the Boodles, then do make sure you enter for a chance to win those stadium passes. But now I'm joined in a very rainy, very damp, wet Paris by producer Alina. We are currently under Simone Mathieu court, sheltering from the rain. Has there ever been a French Open this wet, Alina?
As far as I remember, my last wet Roland Garros memories are from 2019, where like a lot of rain breaks and delayed matches got me to actually see Djokovic and team in a great battle.
That is true. It sometimes can work in your favour, and we have been very lucky that we are on courts that do have roofs for almost the entirety of our time here. And when the scheduling does go awry, it does mean there are opportunities for more matches on those courts. So there is always a flip side to it. And if you see Djokovic team, I mean, you definitely wouldn't have been complaining. But what have we been filling our time with in a rain delay? A rain delay in Paris. There's only one thing that Alina would be filling her time with, and that's got to be pastries. Last time we touched upon, was it the brioche croissant of Estoril? And are you back on the flaky pastry now?
We are in Butterland in Paris, where pastries is all there is. I mean, we are so close to call a boulangerie the Tennis Weekly HQ.
We may as well record from there next time. I think that would probably make more sense than sometimes the strange places we find ourselves recording. We've recorded from a cafe. We have an Estoril, so maybe
it's time to do a boulangerie.
It's time to do a
How
boulangerie.
else would you do Paris properly?
Exactly. And whilst we're there, we can order the baguettes that we have to keep us going during the day for lunch as well. But the weather really has been bad. Unfortunately, a lot of matches have been rained off, so we can only update you on the matches that did manage to take place yesterday. And we were lucky enough to have tickets for both Chatrier and Susan Longlon. Very lucky because we actually had Simone Mathieu tickets, but in the resale, we were able to bag ourselves a couple of, very good seats.
Very good Chatrier seats, getting us very, very close to the action.
Very close, and even closer than we ever thought possible when we found ourselves in a corporate box courtside for the match of the year.
Iga versus Naomi.
How did that happen? I have to recount that I was sitting and probably not paying the most attention to your location because I was so focused on the match. And then suddenly, I see that you've disappeared and you're waving at me from a corporate box. And I believe you had a little chat with one of the stewards who said that the corporate boxes were now vacant and you had an invitation.
It was an open invitation to everyone, basically, that was in the category we were at. But apparently nobody else wanted to move or nobody heard the...
No one was brave enough to take on the French stewards.
I ran. I did not
You
walk,
did.
I ran. It was also a changeover break, so you had to run.
Yes, and I did not get the memo, so I got a text from you saying, in a box, come find me. Which is a pretty great text to send.
I think that is probably the best that could have happened in the heat of that match because things were like super intense, so we got to feel everything like from up close. And I mean, probably now Chatrier is ruined for us and we cannot do anything but emotion packages.
Yes, I do think we're going to have to move to a hospitality package, but I'm not sure anyone will upgrade us to that quite yet. But Chatrier, we've made a pact. We will not be back on Chatrier. I can't promise we'll keep to it, but that experience was so incredible, and we do have to talk about that match. What a contest. As we've said, the match of the year. Alina, you hadn't seen Naomi Osaka play before, and you got to see her up close on what hasn't been her favourite surface, play probably some of the highest level of tennis she's played in years. How was it for you?
It was great. I mean, we have to start talking about her outfit. Beautiful.
Shimmering.
Shimmering. I think it was a Nike custom dress. And given that Nike is not bringing the A game into tennis outfits at the moment, it was like so great to see. One of those nice, it was reminding us of Serena having
very Serena coded.
Yeah,
yes.
It was so good.
It was shining. She looked spectacular and she played in spectacular fashion.
Confident. She was really trying to like be present in the game. Positive
G
body
herself
language.
up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what was so exciting about that match is that going into it, I'm not sure that we all had the highest expectations. I think I actually said it's the worst possible matchup for Naomi Osaka, but
I think it was the worst possible matchup for Iga.
yeah, based on the scoreline and based on how close Naomi got with a match point, I have to say I was very heartbroken. I was cheering very loudly because we are here as fans watching. We do love to do Roland Garros as fans rather than accredited, because it does allow me to cheer for Naomi at full volume. And I'm not sure anyone else in the boxes were cheering quite as loudly as me, were they, Alina? Have you heard me cheer that loudly?
Yes, I did. I will not mention who and for when and for what.
It's got to be
were you
Sloane.
cheering. Yeah, we'll talk about this later. We had a good pack of Iga fans in the row behind us. I think they were like 2 rows up with like a flag, and they were like going at it. And you were the only one, the Brit, yelling, "Let's go, Naomi!"
Yes, I was trying to like disrupt the chant of Iga, but I'm not sure I quite did it. But obviously, we're Iga fans here. But Osaka, I really felt at that moment, did need the encouragement because she had, and I'd say she'd won the match. She just didn't win the last point. That's my take on it. From going 6-1, she did. So, and if you look at the number of points won, she won 114 to 109. But again, you've got to give it to Iga that she did stay rock solid in those moments. She didn't give her anything in those final 5 games. And Naomi missed a couple of shots here and there, and that would have made all the difference. I was looking at her box, and I think that they probably felt as emotionally invested as I was at that point, where so close to jumping up, leaping up in celebration. They almost were prepared for it.
Her box was standing. And you know it's big when the box is standing, right?
Wim Fissette, not normally a stander, especially. I think he's quite a lot more reserved than that. But again, what an electric match. I would say of matches that I've seen live and the seats I've seen matches from live, I think that was probably my ultimate best experience at a Grand Slam to date. So it's hard to beat that. But the only thing that could have beaten it for me would be if Naomi had got that final point. But again, very, very impressive. And on Iga, were you impressed by just how she managed to hang in there in those really, really tricky moments?
The problem solving, it was there. She can problem solve herself out of like some really sticky situations, and she was like really in trouble at some point with Osaka having match point, right? And she just solved herself out of that.
Head down, kept going. There were a few moments where I felt like she was getting frustrated by the fact the match was literally going away from her so quickly, but clearly in the back of her mind, she knew that she'd have chances. She knew Naomi would find it hard to close. And I mean, she did it.
And that's usually the 1% that makes the difference.
And that's why she's world number 1. But one thing she did have difficulty with was the crowd. After the match, we were very surprised that she actually almost did a lesson with Iga, where she tried to school the crowd, I would say would be the appropriate term, on the fact that there's a lot of money on the line, it's very serious, and that people shouldn't call out during points, which, from a sentiment perspective, encouraging people to stay quiet during the points, I think that's been a talking point here in Paris. I would say the crowd was very respectful, and there were maybe 2 points where it might have been a little bit disruptive, but they were mostly when Naomi was actually going to be affected by it. So it felt like it was more frustration in the moment rather than it was with the crowd. But very odd timing and very odd to mention the finances behind it. Because for me, that was very jarring because there is a lot of money on the line, but at the same time...
Is that the right place and time after you've been cheered out of a sticky situation?
Yes, and your own fans as well. I think it's a very, very tricky one. And for me personally, it was not in the best taste.
Well, it did set the tennis community on fire. There is debates on that will go on for a long time. I do believe that there was a lot of frustration, a lot of relief, a lot of emotional
energy.
Yes, and this slipped out. It has to be said. Was it the right moment? We don't know. Was it the right thing to say? We're divided.
If you ask Naomi Osaka, she said she had no issue with the crowd. In fact, she really loved being out there and the atmosphere that was out there. It was not a full Chatrier crowd either. So when it comes to some of the worst experiences that people have had, you'd have to look at matches like Jarry versus Mute, where the French crowd are really boisterous and lively.
Honestly, Jarry in Argentina at all given time.
Yeah, I mean, if you play a Billie Jean King Cup match or a Davis Cup match, you really know that silence during points is a luxury that many don't have, and this was not at all a boisterous crowd. So from my perspective, it was a lesson that didn't need to be taught, and actually a lesson that maybe painted Iga not in the best light when it comes to the referencing of money. But we will move on from that. I'm sure she will elaborate on that further. We might get a part 2 to the Iga school of tennis and etiquette, but also on Chatrier. Well, actually, we should touch upon this first. Garcia and Kenin was the opening match that you got to see. And on the subject of atmosphere and crowds, it is in that graveyard slot at the start of the day. How was it with the French player playing? Did it affect the match with the crowd behaving?
The crowd was really cheering, but we have to give it to them. It was Wednesday at 11 on a working day.
It's hump day, yeah.
The crowd is not going to be there. Bless us, tourists. We were there. But
Yes.
we cannot fill a full Chatrier, let's be honest.
We can fill half a box
Half a box.
at best.
At best. But the crowd was with Caroline, and she did a great job. But I felt like she was emotional,
Yes.
stressed. There was some pressure. She missed in key points, some easy shots, I would say. Some embarrassing overheads were missed there, and you could see like her confidence slipping. But the crowd was with her till the end, and I wouldn't say it was the worst Chatrier match I witnessed, but it was very much one-sided. And I was happy to see Kenin.
It seemed to
doing
fire her
Kenin.
up in those
Yes,
moments. And I
it
think
was
that's
vintage.
one side
Good.
of that we can mention is that most people, when they are against a crowd, it goes one of two ways. You either end up very much fired up by it, or it actually completely derails you and you actually don't play your game. So it seemed like Kenin was really fired up by that opportunity. Someone else who had a lot of support on Chatrier was Carlos Alcaraz. You were very close to the action,
Very.
very close to the box. You got to see Charlie play again. The last time you saw him was Argentina, I believe.
Yes. Also very close, because we got to talk to him a bit in press, and we got like quite close.
How close are we talking?
Very close, always.
Too close, yes.
Very close.
Too close if you ask him. But you saw firsthand where his level was at. There have been questions about injury. He came through his first round very comfortably. He was playing against a relative unknown who was hitting the ball very hard. What was your take on this player?
I was very surprised to see a young Jesper de Jong showing up, hitting big, and sort of matching the game of Alcaraz, hitting big, going at it, running after every ball. He got some like tumbles on court. He was like all full of clay at some point. But it was fun. It was exciting. The first two sets, you could clearly see glimpses of Alcaraz that we knew of, being aggressive and running and catching every ball. Good luck with that. And then we had a bit of a surprise in set 3.
He dropped a set.
He dropped a set.
And not only just a set, but it was a 6-2 set. He really did fall away and the unforced errors came in.
And that's when all these questions about his form, his injury, his like physical capabilities, how much is he willing to put in, come through.
And if he's winning, we don't really ask those questions. No. And for the first round match, we said maybe he hasn't been tested enough to see. But when you are having the ball thumped at you like that and you have a forearm injury, that is a lot of pressure to absorb. And it did feel like potentially in that third set, he did go off the boil, but then the champion's mentality that he has allowed him to bring it back around. Moving on to the rest of the tournament for Charlie, what would you say your expectations are for him and that he might have of himself? It feels like it's taking it match by match. And I'm pretty sure that if he can keep winning each match, putting himself in a better situation, he won't be complaining.
Oh, absolutely. But he will have to probably test his capacities and his physical condition more. I'm pretty sure he can find the form, but it really depends on who's going to meet next and how much he will have to put in physical-wise, because I can't see him going into like 5-setters.
He could do with a withdrawal, couldn't he? A couple of Medvedev had today. That would have been ideal for him.
Somebody could have cut him some flag, absolutely.
And whilst that was going on, I was also witnessing a battle over on Susan Longnon because we did split up so that we could cover all the action. And I was watching Tsitsipas play against a player that we have watched for coming up to 6 hours on Susan Longnon before, and that is Daniel Altmaier, a player who actually took out Yannick Sinner.
Last year, what a memory.
I mean, maybe if the Osaka Swiatek match is the match where I left heavy-hearted and heartbroken, that was a match that you left heartbroken, Alina, because you were really invested in Sinner.
I was invested. I was heartbroken.
Match
and
points.
The only thing that healed me was a Paris pastry.
Yes, it did. And afterwards, I think quite a few of those Paris pastries helped to heal you. How many was it approximately? A dozen?
We went straight out and got like one of those like chocolate-sided madeleines.
Yes.
Out of fury.
Yes, you did. And then we were sitting there and it was silent. We were not. It was a silent moment.
Silent moment with a pastry.
And if anyone saw you, she is okay. Don't worry. But I was not okay after the Osaka match. But I didn't. There were no pastries on sale at that time in the evening, so I had to find other ways. But I would say Tsitsipas. He did drop a set. He wasn't, thankfully, on court for 6 hours. But But what I did particularly enjoy was the first 2 sets where he was playing very free tennis. It was 2 single-handed backhands, and he said he likes playing players with single-handed backhands because it's like playing against himself, which I'm not sure quite how we interpret that, but I guess it is because he likes to see the way that he plays replicated, which I think maybe seems a slightly bit self-involved, but I would say we all love a one-handed backhand, and the one-handed backhand was winning no matter what, and it was Stefanos Tsitsipas who came through.
Somehow, it sort of like falls on the Tsitsipas brand. Like, it sounds like something that Stefanos would say.
It's kind of deep, but also you're like, wait, what? I'm not quite sure how to interpret that one, but either way, he did get the win. I do think he's my pick for the tournament, which I'm not regretting after seeing him drop that set, but I would like him to be a little bit more focused in some of those key moments. But as we've said, Otmai is a tricky customer. Someone else on Susan Lonnell that you didn't get a chance to see that I did see was Ons Jabeur, who came through a very tricky match where she actually also lost more points than she won, and that was against Isario. And very long rallies, lots of great shots, lots of trick shots, lobs, drop shots, we had it all. She came through. I'm not sure Paris is a happy hunting ground for her yet. Is she gearing up for the grass, do you think?
I think her heart is still with Wimbledon.
She
I
wants
think
the Wimbledon.
Ever think about it? But I think Paris is a fun ground for her. She's the Ministry of Happiness, so I think it is the surface that allows her to.
It makes people very happy to certainly watch some of the shot making.
Trick shots. She's a trickster.
She really is, and she was playing very well when she came through in the end. She did manage to wrestle that one against what could be a very difficult opponent. Someone else who had to wrestle a first round match was Andrei Rublev. He managed to get through much more comfortably against Martinez. Alina, we have to mention, we mentioned it before, the last encounter you had with Martinez, you were his water girl, I believe.
Yes, it was in Estoril, where we were actually joking that I was on Estoril.
The Estoril payroll.
The Estoril
what job
payroll.
didn't you do?
What? Yeah. We were very close to. Somehow I tend to get very close to people. Somehow
Yes, this is a recurring theme of this podcast.
I end up in all sorts of boxes, in players
commentators'
teams,
boxes.
boxes. Like, I am drawn into
You had
the
dinner
action.
with an umpire?
We had dinner with an umpire. All of this unplanned.
Carlos
It feels
Bernardes,
like-
just less than 30 centimetres away from us, I believe.
Yeah, big
He actually
desserts.
offered to share some pudding with us.
Big
Again,
desserts.
he's a dessert person, you're a dessert person. Maybe it's a match made in heaven, but Martinez, you were not very close to because you were on Chatrier. I was closer, but I couldn't hand him a water bottle in this case, and maybe that's what made the difference. But he did go down in 3 pretty straightforward sets, and Rublev seems to have found his groove. Will he break the quarterfinal duck?
I think the wet Paris is Rublev's style, is Medvedev's style. We know that they thrive in these conditions. I mean, he did great in Bostad last year.
He really did.
Rublev, but it was
Bageling Casper Ruud.
just because it was so damp and the courts were like so wet all the time.
Yes,
And
still
it's
wet
gonna be
here. Just
still
having a little
wet.
look around. Slightly less heavy rain, but damp nonetheless. I think it's very unlikely we're going to have play until probably about 5 p.m. local time potentially. Well, after that match, I did come and join you for that Osaka match, but you had a break after you saw Alcaraz play, where Alina took to the grounds, and you bumped into a bunch of carrots, I believe.
I got very close to the Carotta boys.
Yes.
And
Your first time.
the first
How many were in the bunch of carrots?
There were 4 carrots in
I
the
think I've
bunch.
seen 3. Was it the same bunch? We don't know.
We don't know. That is for us to find out now. There are pictures. It's upon us to figure out, are they always the same carrots? Are they more than 4?
Surely they can split the load, because no one's looking at the faces. They're just looking at the carrots.
It's a big orange carrot.
It is. And you said a quick hello. In what language did you say hello, Alina?
Of course, in Italian.
In Italian.
Of course.
And they answered in Italian?
It's not very hard to say ciao. They were
Okay,
like,
fair enough. Even if they weren't Italian carrots, they were able to pass for Italian carrots. And you also witnessed some other activities. I will have to out you a little bit here that you're very competitive when it comes to the activations around grounds. Very impressed by how you were able to throw a tennis ball from a long distance away into a very small hole that was put inside a Whirlpool washing machine. Did you try anything? I thought you were eyeing up pickleball.
never.
Never. Okay, never pickleball.
We are actually. We were surprised by all the pickleball activations. I think
I think we can
Yeah,
hear it now,
we can
actually.
hear.
We can see it through the
We
orangery.
can see it through the orangery, and we can hear the
It's a very annoying noise,
pickleball
isn't it?
noise.
Yes.
Yeah, we are not particularly impressed by pickleball.
Yes, we're not. So not pickleball.
Freddie is not impressed with pickleball.
Freddie, very much not impressed. Freddie Nielsen, right?
Yeah.
I remember he said that to you in a Davis Cup, that he said he didn't understand why anyone played it. I think the money might explain why players like Jack Sock and Eugenie Bouchard move that way, but we cannot be bought unless there's a pastry on offer, maybe.
So many activations on the grounds. It's actually fun. There's also a tennis museum.
Museum.
Where you get to see a bit of the history. We
had a little look through there. Interactive, very, very enjoyable, especially on a wet day.
Shoes, everything with history.
Very nice indeed. And we will keep you posted on all the action throughout the rest of the week. We did have a couple of matches that we were not covering. Sinner came through quite a late night finish. We did not have evening Chatrier tickets. We were actually enjoying a dinner following the live scores.
Probably the only dinner that we'll enjoy this
Well,
week, as
the schedule...
If the rain keeps going, matches will get
5 matches on Susan Longlong starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow. That's a change from Emily Mauresmo. We will also keep you posted on the updates to the rules that have been made, where we have no alcohol allowed in stands, we have earlier starts, we have greater security, and the most experienced umpires will be handling the more tricky and potentially boisterous courts. So we will be keeping you posted on all of those aspects. And we will be back on Sunday for our round 3 catch-up. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episodes of Tennis Weekly Podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action over the next couple of weeks from Roland Garros. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X, with a handle at Tennis Weekly Pod.
You can purchase Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/tennisweeklypodcast. You can email the show, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or
check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back on Sunday at Tennis Weekly HQ, which may or may not be a boulangerie, for our round 3 catch-up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Alina.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Kim. And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.